back, everybody, to The Point Shot. I'm here with Zach Austin, and this is yours truly, Nick Gozen. Today is July 1st, 2015, and you all know what that means in the hockey world. It's the free agent frenzy in the NHL. This year was quite the surprise in my book as a Wings fan. There's been a lot going on with every team, it seems, in the league this year. Detroit, definitely no exception there. You want to go through some moves that happened today, Zach? Give your 2 cents of what happened.
Well, like you said, Nick, a lot happened today in the beginning of the NHL free agency period. Like you said, surprisingly, for once, the Red Wings did something. Got Brad Richards, Mike Green, both which I think they'll pan out. I think they'll be solid signings, but then again, only time will tell for things like that. So, but yeah, definitely, like you stated, the league, talk about a shakeup. My goodness. I mean, guys just moving all over the place in the free agency market. I mean, and it's not even just that. We still got trades happening and stuff, too. I mean, like you mentioned earlier when me and you were just talking, Phil Kessel was moved from Toronto to Pittsburgh in kind of what seemed like to me a lopsided deal. But that has yet to be remain seen as well. So, but yeah, definitely a lot of big moves in the free agency market. It's going to be an exciting NHL hockey season. Just glad the Red Wings finally did a little bit of something to tweak the roster. For sure. No matter what it is. I mean, a couple guys, you never know. They could make a huge impact, could completely turn this team around, or you never know. Nothing might come of it, but we'll see.
And I think it's interesting. There's a lot of similarities going back to the trade deadline last year. Because one of the main things was, I mean, what did we acquire at the deadline? Marek Zidlitsky and Eric Cole. And what did we acquire during free agency? Another defenseman in Mike Green, an offensive defenseman, and Brad Richards. So it's like, and we saw how that worked out for us. I mean, in hindsight, do I do those deals again, the Zidlitsky and Cole trades? No. In hindsight, anyways, they didn't exactly help us make the playoffs. I think we were going to be fine regardless. We were going to make it. And they didn't exactly help us during the Tampa Bay series either. So in retrospect, that really just cost us a couple pretty high draft picks. You know what I mean?
Right.
But in this scenario, Mike Green is obviously a better player than Marek Zidlitsky. Obviously. You know, and he fills a very large need on this team. We were in dire need of puck-moving defensemen. We still are, you know. And even if he's not the greatest defensively, that's fine, because Detroit can make up for that with their great defensive forwards. And we have plenty of guys that can play adequate defense to make up for it, especially if he's paired with someone like Cronwall or even Danny DeKeyser. So I have no doubts that Mike Green will be a good, solid acquisition for this team. He brings a lot to the table, and I think Brad Richards, I didn't like the Brad Richards signing at first when I first saw that we were talking to him, because I'm like, I don't really see what role he fills on this team. It seems like we already have a logjam of forwards as it is. Right. And there was a lot of talk that Ken Holland, the general manager of the Detroit Red Wings, was saying that the highly touted prospect of Dylan Larkin would have a chance to make the team. And after this signing and after bringing Joachim Andersen back, I'm not really sure that's exactly possible.
Right.
So it kind of puts you in a predicament of what Holland really wants to do with this team. But like you said, it should be interesting to see how this shakes out, if it really has a true difference on this team, or if it's just kind of fluff that maybe gets you a few more wins in the season, but ultimately you have the same outcome, maybe a first-round exit.
Well, I agree with you totally on that. I do believe Mike Green, he will pan out. Brad Richards, like you said, that's going to be an interesting situation. I see what they did, though, like you mentioned to me earlier, with the whole Stephen Weiss buyout when they bought out his contract, signing Brad Richards. But when we signed him, it really got me thinking, and I really hope this isn't the case. I'm really hoping they don't give him the same treatment they gave Stephen Weiss. Sure. You know, I think Brad Richards, I don't know. There's something about the guy. He brings a different element, you know, to the ice every night.
He's a competitor.
He's a competitor. He is. Whereas Stephen Weiss, he's kind of a guy that's just going to go out and play his game every night. I'm hoping they don't do what they did to Stephen Weiss to Brad Richards, but it'll be interesting to see because, like you said, we do have a logjam of forwards. There was talks of possibly Dylan Larkin making a roster spot. Like you said, I don't believe that's going to be happening now. And if it does happen, then basically all that I'm saying right now is going to come to fruition. Brad Richards is going to become the next Stephen Weiss in my eyes because we all know how they are with their centers like Joachim Anderson, guys like that. They're going to keep him around for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it's just the way that it is. So definitely going to be interesting. Definitely going to be interesting. I think the Mike Green situation, we already know what's going to happen there. He's going to step in. He's going to fill a role. We needed a right-handed shot, like you said, offensive defenseman. I do believe that we have the right team, depending on what pairing he's put on, though, who he's with, where his lackluster defensive performance will be covered. But that all depends on, what pairing they put him with and what lines he's playing with at the same time. Because I'm a firm believer that if he's on a pairing where he's playing with the Tatar, Sheahan, and whoever line mostly, he might actually end up hurting himself stat-wise just because of his defensive play. Because that line right there, to me, isn't a very good defensive line. Now, if you played him with guys like maybe like a Glendening line or Datsuk or even Helm, I think that would work as well. But it all depends. I'm pretty sure that they're going to figure out the whole situation. They're going to figure out where to put him. Pretty sure that's all going to work out. But the whole Brad Richards thing is what's really going to be interesting, and I look forward to seeing what they're going to do there. But other than that, if you want to ask me, except for maybe a couple minor leaguers, I think the Red Wings are done in free agency.
Oh, yeah.
To be completely honest with you. I don't think anything else is going to come of it. If it does, I'd be surprised. Really, I think the way Ken Holland works as a GM is, especially free agencies and trades, he's not the type of guy that's going to go out there and get stuff that's just unnecessary. Players that, this team doesn't need. He goes out there and gets what he knows that we need as a team. He's not really a guy that wants a lot, GM-wise, out of players. So I think we're done in free agency. I think that'll be it, except for maybe a couple AHL players. But other than that, that's it for the Red Wings. But like I said, the rest of the league, they're definitely not done. Sure. There's still moves being made, and there's still going to be moves made. So it's definitely going to be interesting come next season.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. And I almost forgot for a second about the whole Stephen Weiss situation because, he has been pretty forgettable, and don't get me wrong.
Right.
I just thought it was very interesting timing to buy out Stephen Weiss. I'm not really sure if they were gunning after Brad Richards this entire time.
Right.
It seems kind of odd. I haven't really heard anything up until today, the day that they actually signed him, that this was going to happen. I just thought it was really odd timing for Weiss. I had a feeling that Babcock was the one that didn't like Weiss.
Right.
But obviously, Holland didn't exactly care for him either, or else he'd probably still be here. I just think it's interesting. Richards is making about $3 million this year, and if you count Weiss's buyout on top of it, that's another about $1.7 million that Detroit's going to be paying in cap hit for him. So if you add that up, that's almost $5 million, which is what Weiss would be making regardless. So it's kind of interesting. I like what Richards brings too, but I just thought it was kind of interesting that they bought out Weiss this year instead of next offseason, because the main motive behind buying out Stephen Weiss is that they could keep Darren Helm and also re-sign Justin Abdelkader, which both those contracts expire next offseason. So I thought it was very interesting timing, but nonetheless, it is what it is. He had a chance to prove himself to some degree. He didn't get a great chance here. He spent a lot of time in the press box, but that's kind of the business for you. That's what happens.
Just to add, though, on the whole Stephen Weiss thing, I get what you're saying there, but I kind of got thinking about it a little bit after I seen the Brad Richards deal. We only got Brad Richards for what, 1 year?
1 year.
1 year. If we're taking pretty much the same cap hit that we would with Stephen Weiss, I could see why they bought him out now with with remaining years on his contract. Because basically what you're getting is you're erasing a guy that was kind of irrelevant for you. You're taking him out of the picture, and you're basically paying a guy in Brad Richards to come in for 1 season. So now you only have to deal with that contract instead of Stephen Weiss's contract for the remainder now that you've bought him out.
Yeah, it was mostly about the term.
Right.
He was here for 3 more years.
Right, exactly. So you got to look at it that way. But, other than that, free agent-wise, I think the Red Wings are pretty much set. Ken Holland has talked a little bit, and he's been in talks with a couple other GMs around the league about some possible trades. Quite a few options to explore here, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. And only seeing more of the trades that are happening around the NHL, it only gets the creative mind flowing a little bit more. Guys that are being moved that you just, even though you could see that they could be moved, it's just kind of shocking. It's a little bit of shell shock to see that them actually getting traded.
Right.
I mean, obviously the Phil Kessel trade was a huge one today. That was a major one. That one caught me by shock a lot, actually. And the main thing about that trade that got me was the fact that there was just no real proven NHL talent coming back the other way for someone who's widely known as a top 5 goal scorer in the entire NHL. The only real proven NHL talent they had is Nick Spaulding, and he's never really played more than a third line role for any team. I mean, he's been around for a little while, but other than that, they got Kapanen and Harrington as well, but neither of those are really that blue chip of prospects. So I thought that was interesting. But as far as Detroit options, looking around the league, I mean, we were obviously in talks with Dion Phaneuf for a very long time. Twice actually, before those fell through. And it was up until about a week before the draft that it finally came out that the talks were pretty much at a halt. They're not going to happen anymore. So the odds of Dion Phaneuf becoming a Red Wing just became pretty much zilch. Whether that was Detroit offering not enough or Toronto wanting too much, regardless, it just didn't happen. And Phaneuf would have been a very good piece on this team. I mean, I don't think they would have went after Mike Green if they acquired Dion Phaneuf, mostly because of money issues, because they both right now are going to be making quite a lot of money. As far as other possible moves, more realistic ones that could actually happen, it's been rumored that Kevin Shattenkirk is on the trade block, even though his agent kind of declines that he is. With St. Louis acquiring Chris Butler today, they might be actually looking to St. Louis might be looking to unload a defenseman. Now, if Shattenkirk's available, in my eyes, that's probably the perfect situation for Detroit to pretty much hop on. He's an offensive defenseman. Right now, he's better than Kronwall. So, I mean, I know we've been talking about for the longest time, I know Wings fans have, we have to find a number 2 to put next to Kronwall. Well, if you were to acquire Kevin Shattenkirk, you found your number 2. You just got your number 1 in town. So Kevin Shattenkirk would be leading the charge in Detroit if he was acquired. He had 44 points in about 55 games last season before he got hurt, and at the time he was leading all defensemen in points. He probably could have won the Norris very easily if he stayed healthy, but that's been a lingering issue in Shattenkirk's game. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. There's been other rumors around the league at times that Dustin Byfuglien's been available. I always thought that would have been a very interesting choice for Detroit if they chose to go after him. Doesn't really totally fit Detroit's game. He takes a lot of dumb penalties, in my opinion, but he is a strong physical presence that Detroit does lack. He would be a top-pairing defenseman. I mean, and like you said earlier, it kind of goes back to where we play Mike Green, whether or not he is playing next to Nicholas Kronwall or possibly next to more of a defensive anchor, like maybe, for example, Danny DeKeyser. I would put Mike Green next to Nicholas Kronwall, personally. I mean, I know that their games are kind of redundant and they play the same kind of game, and you might be making yourself more vulnerable to, defensively, but in my opinion, you need 2 guys together that can really move the puck and be able to get out of your own zone, because I feel like that's hurt Detroit in the past. They'd have one guy trying to get the puck out, but if you got someone like Eriksson, for instance, who's not nearly as good at getting the puck out of his own zone and tends to handle the puck like a hand grenade, it just tends to really collapse on you forecheck-wise. So if you have both of them together, I think that really makes getting the puck out of your own end a lot easier.
I agree with you, yeah. Going back to what you said about the Dion Phaneuf trade, I think that's pretty much a done deal. I don't think Mike Green would have been signed as a free agent if we were still heavily pursuing Dion Phaneuf. But like you said, he would have been a good fit here in Detroit. I think he's not in his element in Toronto. Toronto is not built around the type of player that Dion Phaneuf is. He's not a vital cog to that machine that is the Toronto Maple Leafs hockey club. Whereas for Detroit, he could be, because he could play his game. He could play a solid, defensive game. He'd get every opportunity. He'd probably be a power play guy, he's got a deadly slap shot. So, he could play a solid physical defensive game, get away with it. I just think Detroit would have been a fit for him, and it's too bad that we weren't able to land him, but I think Mike Green will be able to fit in to that spot somewhat. But to the Kevin Shattenkirk trade, like you said, I think that'd be very interesting if it happened. I like Shattenkirk's game. He's a very, very solid defenseman, plays a very solid game, just all around. He's got great hockey smarts, but that's another thing, is he's injury prone. And I don't know why, but these guys that are injury prone, I don't know. I kind of panic a little bit when I see the Red Wings making moves to get him.
The price tags are so huge.
Right,
so
exactly.
When you're centering a deal around one guy, and you're just unloading half the farm for him, and he's not able to stay healthy and play for you.
Right.
It's scary.
Exactly. Yep, I agree with you. Yeah, and it's just tough because teams play Detroit so physical because they get away with it. Detroit's not the type of team, we've been saying this for years, that's going to come out and punish you physically. I mean, yeah, they can play a quick game with a lot of board presence with guys like Glendening or Abdicator getting into the dirty areas, but they're not going to physically take the energy out of your team because of physicality in their game. That's just not the Red Wings style. So that would be the main reason why I'm worried about these injury-prone guys coming to Detroit, just because teams play them so physically. It almost seems like it's a whole nother level of hockey when Detroit's playing. So I don't want to say that these guys that come to Detroit that have had injury problems in the past are pretty much going to be singled out, but
would you throw Mike Green in there?
I would actually. I would throw Mike Green in there. I mean, I wouldn't call him injury prone.
But he has had issues.
He has had issues, and a lot of his injuries that he has had were very serious injuries. Granted, he has recovered just fine. I mean, he has lost quite a bit of a step, but at the same time, he had a darn fine step when he had his full potential going for him. So losing a little bit of it really didn't hinder him that much. At the same time, like I said before, only time will tell. I'd like the Shattenkirk deal, honestly. I think that'd be great. Anymore in the NHL, if you're going to be looking to trade for somebody, if it's a big name guy especially, you got to be jumping all over it. And I mean, granted, there is rumors going around about Ken Holland talking to people for trades, but at the same time, like I said, Ken Holland's not the type of GM that's quick to jump to conclusions, quick to make moves for stuff like that. So hopefully they can figure it out, but we'll see.
And that'll conclude this episode of The Point Shot. Next we'll probably be talking about the lineup and going forward for Detroit, maybe even some prospects. And hope you tune in for the next episode. And until then, see you later.